April 30th, 1945. In a concrete bunker 12 meters underground, with Soviet forces less than 1 kilometer away, Adolf Hitler died by his own hand. 12 years earlier, he had been appointed Chancellor of Germany, a country humiliated by defeat, crippled by economic depression, burning with resentment. In the years between, he had rebuilt a military machine that conquered most of Europe in under 2 years. He had been, briefly, the most powerful ruler on the continent since Napoleon. What went wrong is one of the most studied questions in modern history. The answer is not complicated. It was him. By June 1940, Germany had achieved something no military force since Napoleon had managed: the conquest of France. Not in 4 years of bloody attrition, as in the First World War, but in 6 weeks of mobile armored warfare that the French and British commands simply did not know how to counter. Britain had been driven from the continent at Dunkirk. Italy had entered the war on Germany's side. The Soviet Union was supplying Germany with grain and oil under a non-aggression pact. The United States was neutral and deeply reluctant to enter another European war. From any rational strategic calculation, Germany was in an extraordinarily strong position. What Hitler did next was not rational. On May 24, 1940, with the British Expeditionary Force cornered on the beaches of Dunkirk, Hitler issued the famous halt order, stopping his panzer divisions from advancing and handing the job of destroying the encircled forces to the Luftwaffe. The reasons are still debated: respect for Flemish soil, concern about tank losses, Göring's lobbying for an Air Force victory. The result is beyond debate. Over 9 days, 338,000 soldiers were evacuated, including almost the entire professional British Army. Churchill called it a miracle of deliverance. Military historians call it Hitler's first great self-inflicted wound. Those 338,000 men did not disappear, they came back. By September 1940, the Luftwaffe's systematic targeting of RAF airfields and radar stations had brought fighter command to the edge of collapse. Aircraft losses were unsustainable. Experienced pilots could not be replaced fast enough. A few more weeks and the RAF would have been unable to contest German air superiority, making a cross-channel invasion feasible. Then a small RAF raid struck Berlin, and Hitler responded with rage rather than strategy. To divert the entire campaign to bombing London, the RAF got the breathing room it needed. It rebuilt. The Blitz killed thousands of British civilians, but it saved the RAF. Hitler had snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. On June 22, 1941, Hitler violated the foundational principle of German strategic thinking: never fight a two-front war. He invaded the Soviet Union while Britain remained undefeated in the West. He predicted the campaign would last 8 to 10 weeks. The Soviet state would collapse, he believed, like a rotten structure that only needs a kick to fall apart. Initial progress was astonishing, but the Soviet Union did not collapse. It bled, retreated, and rebuilt. The distances were enormous. Germany's longest previous campaign had been France, roughly 500 kilometers. The Soviet Union stretched east for 6,000 kilometers. Hitler had just acquired the vastest military commitment in European history, while still at war with Britain and with America now supplying British forces. The two-front war that had destroyed Germany in World War I had returned, this time potentially on 3 fronts. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor was Hitler's opportunity to stay out of a war with the United States. He had no treaty obligation. The Tripartite Pact required Germany to support Japan only if Japan was attacked, not if Japan attacked first. Roosevelt had been trying to find a path into the European war for 2 years, but American public opinion blocked him. Hitler solved Roosevelt's problem for him. He declared war on the United States 4 days after Pearl Harbor, apparently believing that Japan's military power would tie America down in the Pacific. It didn't. The United States fought simultaneously in 2 oceans. American industrial output, once fully mobilized, produced more weapons per month than Germany produced per year. Stalingrad was not inevitable. The German Sixth Army was surrounded in November 1942, but a breakout was possible in the first weeks of the encirclement. General Paulus requested permission to fight his way out. Hitler refused, categorically and repeatedly. He was convinced Göring could supply the trapped army by air. Göring promised 300 tons per day. The Luftwaffe delivered an average of 100. The men starved, then froze, then died in their hundreds of thousands in the ruins of a city on the banks of the Volga. When Paulus finally surrendered on February 2, 1943, it was the first time an entire German army had been destroyed. The psychological impact on Germany was enormous. The strategic impact on the Eastern Front was decisive. After Stalingrad, Germany never again mounted a successful major offensive on the Eastern Front. On the morning of June 6, 1944, as Allied forces fought their way up the beaches of Normandy, Germany possessed armored divisions powerful enough to potentially drive them back into the sea, if deployed immediately. Those divisions were the OKW Reserve, and only Hitler could authorize their movement. Hitler was asleep. His staff did not wake him, partly because he had taken sedatives, partly because interrupting his sleep for what might be a feint was genuinely dangerous for the officer who guessed wrong. By the time Hitler awoke, assessed the situation, and gave the order in the late afternoon, the Allied beachhead was consolidated. Some historians believe this decision, a 6-hour delay caused by one man's sleep schedule, was the single moment that sealed Germany's defeat in the West. The final act was still a year away, but after June 6th, it was a question of when, not if. By early 1945, Germany was dying on two fronts simultaneously. Soviet forces were 60 kilometers from Berlin in January. The Western Allies had crossed the Rhine in March. The economy was collapsing. Fuel shortages meant tanks could not move. Aircraft could not fly. Inside the Führer bunker, Hitler conducted daily military briefings where he ordered movements of armies that existed only on paper. He fired generals who gave him accurate information. He maintained until the final week that Germany could still turn the war around. Outside the bunker, Berlin was burning. The Soviet noose tightened by the hour. On April 29, 1945, with Soviet forces fighting street by street outside, Adolf Hitler married Eva Braun in the bunker. The next morning, he dictated his final testament, appointed successors, and said his goodbyes. At approximately 3:30 p.m. on April 30th, he shot himself through the head. Eva Braun died alongside him from cyanide. Their bodies were burned in the Chancellery Garden as per his instructions. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. The war in Europe was over. Between 70 and 85 million people had died, the most destructive conflict in human history. The man who started it died in a concrete room underground, afraid to let his body be seen. Hitler lost the Second World War because of himself, not because Germany lacked the military capability to win. At multiple points between 1940 and 1944, different decisions would have produced different outcomes.